Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
All right, we are back in full effect in the Detroit is Different podcast studios with a friend again. This is our second appearance on Detroit is Different. You're one of the rare and the proud few that have came twice, doubled down on Detroit is Different. And I'm sure you're going to triple down and quad up and everything. We actually want to share you as a mic of this podcast. But Sharea, Ayers, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I cannot complain.
All right. And as that phrase goes, last time we talked about your background, the classic one, but one of the big things we sort of talked about and we're expanding on is your connection to Black history and your love for Black history. We talked a little bit about that before, and this time we're talking about your Juneteenth effort that you've been doing for some years now. So let's talk a little bit about why is Juneteenth important, period.
Okay. Well, first off, Juneteenth is important because it is the actual acknowledgement of the end of enslavement. Because prior to that, like the Emancipation Proclamation was, I guess, given out, for lack of better words, 2.5 years before the enslaved in Galveston, Texas found out about the news. And don't get me wrong, like African Americans were freeing themselves or being self-liberating, by the masses prior to the proclamation. And on top of that, like we know a lot of them also entered into the war to fight on the Union side. So needless to say, we celebrate Juneteenth because it signifies liberation for the enslaved across the country. And that's why we celebrate it.
Okay. All right. And that's the celebration. And for you, as somebody that has done Black history programs, definitely leads Black history facts, you even have trivia connected to Black history. What was it that made you connect with bringing a Juneteenth celebration to life?
Really, it all started from hanging out with my sister. Like we were hanging out for St. Patrick's Day, and I was looking at all these other melanated people in green, and I'm like, they don't even know who they are, like we need to celebrate ourselves. She was like, so what you gonna do? I was like, well, that's a great question. You know what I mean? Because I thought I was doing something, but apparently not. But anywho, through research and things of that nature, I learned that a lot of states, not just the state of Texas, celebrates Juneteenth. And on top of that, we know with the Great Migration, several people from the South moved north into several other cities like Detroit. So it's relevant in the sense of the Great Migration as well as the fact that we need to celebrate liberation for all people. So that's really the main reason why I thought to celebrate Juneteenth in particular, because we do know it's a lot of other holidays and things that tie to Black history, but it's really about making a cultural shift and starting one holiday or one purpose at a time.
So you were sitting around on your phone looking at the pro-Black imagery saying, look at all these Black people wearing shamrocks. I'm not celebrating they people. And you was like, all right, let me do something. And shout out to your sister, Janae Ayers.
Yes.
The definitely at large council and seeking re-election this time around, as you know, but also a person that is grounded in Black history too. And your mom, just like as a tradition, it was something that was inbred in your household. Why do you think it's so important for our people to connect with these stories of liberation, of freedom, of history in a celebration like Juneteenth?
I think it's important because it helps shape your identity as well as your future. I mean, a lot of us don't identify with who we are because we don't know who we are. And the whole thing is like, let's just be real. The majority of us don't have our DNA to trace back where we're from in the continent of Africa or where our ancestors are from. But we do have documented history in America in regards to the things that we have done as a people. So I think it's vital in the sense that if you know people before you did it, then you can do it. So like prime example with Juneteenth, in 1866, it was a few ministers, including Richard Allen and a few other newly freed people who came together, put their finances together, and purchased land, and it became Emancipation Park. Emancipation Park. And so it was a place for them to celebrate Juneteenth. And on top of that, that was the first public park open to African Americans because of Jim Crow. And so it was just an example, in my opinion, of collective economics, as well as people coming together for a cause and making a difference. So the whole thing is that, unfortunately, we've been in American society in which we have been conditioned to believe that rugged individualism is what we should all aspire to be, but it's not. That's not our nature. That's not who we are. And again, if we know who we are and we've seen examples in the past of being self-sufficient and having self-determination, then you can become different in regards to how people think and change their mindset. So that's why it's important.
So a couple things I definitely want to unpack in reference to that. But for the people watching, and this will go up the week of the Juneteenth celebration that you're leading, what's going to happen this year with your Juneteenth celebration?
Whew, everything. But no, honestly, so it has really been a blessing because a lot of people have gotten on board, and we already have a bunch of influential people that are on the committee. So, but in a nutshell, this Juneteenth, we are going to activate Livernois and have a unique shopping experience to promote economic nationalism. So what that's going to look like is that registered shoppers will be able to receive a map of all of the participating stores. And I just updated the store list this morning. So we are up to 48 stores that are participating on the Avenue of Fashion. Yeah. And that is one of the oldest Black business districts in the country. So that's a plus. But anywho, what's going to happen that day is that the registered shoppers will check in, and then they'll be able to go to over 40 stores and either get something tangible like a giveaway, a discount, or some entertainment in that store. So literally every store will be celebrating in a different way. And the avenue will be decorated with some balloons and posters with our sponsors. We're also going to have a vendor area with a marketplace, so local vendors can also sell on that day too. And we have a podcast going that day with Motor City Business Roundtable, because they're one of our partners. That'll be going, and it's hosted by Jajan Hobbs, and those have been our hosts for the past 2 years. So I really
great host too.
Yeah, I love them. So they're going to be hosting the podcast and interviewing some of the sponsors, some of the business owners, as well as like our other partner and sponsor this year. Shout out to the Charles H. Wright Museum, reciprocating. Okay. But yeah, so they're going to also be doing the podcast. Then we're also going to have a health and wellness hub that will be held at Canvas Livernois. So that's a pop-up space. And it'll just be basically just wellness stuff for the community. So Black Bottom Gun Club is going to be there. NABA, which is the National Association of Black Accountants, will be there. A representative, Susan Gardner from the Mental Health Task Force for District 2 will be there. Keitra Lewis of UFSC and First Independence will be there. Shakia Ballard will be there, and she is in social work, and she has like these journals coming out in the fall to help women and people just get more in tune. So we have a lot in store, basically. And
with that, that's first off, applause. And I'm going to probably be in effect. We just working out how I'm going to be there as Detroit is different. It's another event at Pause I'm going to be connecting to earlier in the day with Juneteenth. Frida Sampson connected to the Detroit is different. Family, shout out to her and the symposium. And it's more Juneteenth events just happening not just in Detroit, but across the nation, as it's being more embraced and recognized. The tragedy of the murder of George Floyd sparked this movement and tradition, which I do believe will carry on. And I want to talk about that. But, you know, in honoring what's happening this year, let's look at how it started from before, because you mentioned Charles Wright coming on as a sponsor. This originated from meetings there at Charles Wright. How was the first Juneteenth, and how have you continued building this planning committee that now people look forward to with high expectations?
So the first year, again, it came from the challenge from my sister. And then with conversing with my mom and trying to brainstorm how to start everything, she was just like, why don't you call one of the blackest places in the city, which was the museum. Mm-hmm. So it only made sense. So I called the museum. They put me in touch with Jatu, and she was very receptive to the ideas. And then I put the little poster out on Facebook for people to join the committee, and they joined. Mm-hmm. And met some awesome people who have rocked with me the past 2 years now. So that's pretty much how I got started. I called the museum, and they were receptive.
And this is like in the line before, like I say, last year, a lot more momentum. Yes. And I applaud. I was actually at the Juneteenth and participant in it. Yeah.
Don't just say participant.
I was a participant. I was a participant. They had me jaw japping. I was talking about something with Black history and the people.
You sure were. You sure were.
It was the first, it may have been the only virtual event that I think I did last year. Like, it was like, real cool too. Yeah. Like streamed and everything. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows I'm always talking with my hands. I was wondering, like, is this going, like, am I out of focus or something? But, you know, it worked out.
It did. And that's the thing. So that was 2019, calling the museum and getting that going. And we had a lot of people come out that year, like at the least 3,000. So that was cool. And it was an all day festival. And then last year, like you said, with the
virtual
live
event.
stream, right. Mm-hmm. That really was just, that was literally a blessing because Whitmer had opened up the state 2 weeks before Juneteenth. And so I was like, what are we going to do? And then the whole committee was not going to let me not do anything. So I'm like, oh. So anywho, that came together with the owner of the building, which is called Daniel Reed. And we were able to stream from there. And one of our, I guess, artistic directors on the committee, she got the artists, and I was able to get speakers such as yourself, and that turned out great too. So thousands tuned into that. And then this year, really the motivation came from being quarantined, having to read. Well, you don't have to read during quarantine, but I was reading. And I was reading this book called A Shining Thread of Hope, and it's the history of African-American women. And so I learned about the Housewives League of Detroit, and I've spoke about them a few times, but that was the motivation for this year's Juneteenth theme in regards to promoting economic nationalism, because they had 3 criteria. They started in the 1930s, and it was 50 women, including Fannie B. Peck, who made the call in Detroit, and they understood like the value and the power of our dollar as women, especially housewives, because they, even though the men were the ones who were making the money due to sexism at the time, they controlled the money and what happened with it. So at the time, they had 3 criteria, and this was in the 1930s, which is during the Great Depression. They wanted to buy Black products, support Black businesses, and patronize Black professionals. So they went to various stores and merchants within the city of Detroit and different neighborhoods that were considered Black, to see if they met that criteria. And if they did it, or didn't hire anybody or sell any Black products, then they would put them on a no-shop list. And during this decade, not only did it grow from 50 women, it grew to 10,000. And on top of that, they were able to secure 75,000 jobs for African Americans during the worst economic time period of our history. So I'm like, if they were doing this in the 1930s, what are we doing with all of the resources and stuff we have now? So that was really the motivation for trying to activate the avenue and doing something around economics this year.
So along this way, and you talk about something that's big, as people know, Peck Park is named in that honor. I don't know if people are familiar with that, not far from where Charles H. Wright Museum resides now. And this goes back into the idea of public parks and public spaces. I look at you taking on the realm of being a fan of and anchoring in history, like a Jamon Jordan and so many others here, Ken Coleman, Paul Lee. Like, Detroit has such a rich history of people connected to it. And then even Detroit's Black history runs deep, very deep. So bringing that to life, bringing that together beyond what you read about to interacting with the different people on Livernois. Shout out, I know a lot of the Livernois business owners too. We know that Mr. Bartell and the Bartell family love Rufus and everything Rufus does. But, you know, just it's different stories that go into the Black experience, even with these different Black businesses. How was the buy-in getting the people there for a vision? Because so much can be thrown at you as an entrepreneur, as a business and how do you think they made the decision to join this effort? Because, you know, they probably get approached all the time, you know?
Right. Well, honestly, it was because of the partners that we have. So we are partnering with Motor City Business Roundtable and the Avenue of Fashion Business Association. So it actually started from one of the entrepreneurs on the Ave, Kelly Pickett, and he put me in touch with Dauphin, Felly, and Rev Ron, who are like heavy hitters on the Ave. And I also have reached out to Rufus, but, you know, he's super busy, but still. Yep. So due to their canvassing and connections, they were able to get the majority of the stores on board. And so I appreciate them greatly for that. And then on top of that, we've canvassed the Ave twice. So we canvassed back in February to sign up stores, and then we canvassed again just this Saturday and signed up 4 more places. Wow. So, yep. So really it was just about letting the businesses know that we're not looking for them to pay anything to us, but really make it more unique for the shoppers. And then I think it also helped too, because we are providing a lot of the legwork with this. So like if they wanted to have entertainers in their store, then again, like I said, Colleen and Lolly Mariah were on finding and recruiting people to kind of give them the vibe that they wanted. So like, for instance, in C. Granston's Bullard shop, he was like, well, you know, being a more
it's like high-end and leather.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a clothing store that is definitely you know, it's not a place where you're gonna pick up a t-shirt, you know. It's not Foot Locker, but it definitely has some different type of fashion and apparel, and it has a different spin even than what Simply Casual is.
Exactly.
It's its own feel. You should go in there for people listening.
Exactly. And it's more, again, to your point, a little bit more high end, as we would say. And it's not cheap at all. So, but still, they still have a couple items that are,
you know, cheap is relative,
right?
Depending on how you ball it,
right?
It's like Baby would be like, that ain't nothing. $10,000 on a t-shirt. Exactly. You know,
but based on you know, people like myself, I would say there are some items that are within budget. But yeah, so with him being a more high end clothier, he was like, you know, I don't really know how much of a discount we can really give because that's really not our brand. So he was like, it would be cool to have some poets in here though, you know? So we're going to activate his store with, well, it's actually a family business. So let me make that clear, because his wife and children are there, and I really like the vibe in there. And I like that, you know, it's just, again, generational wealth. But anywho, so we're going to put poets in there, and they'll be spitting in different shifts throughout 12 to 6.
That's cool. That's cool. And bringing this together so far, this hasn't happened, but of the 3, what does it look like next time? Because now it's almost like each Juneteenth has its own feel. Because I know people are already saying, what's going to happen next year? What's going to happen next year? I know Livernois will be like, let's keep this here. But will this look different next year, or you don't even know yet?
I don't, because I'm not going to lie. This year, I thought it was actually going to be different because I made this whole proposal between Livernois and the Charles H. Wright and submitted it because I would have liked for it to be like a whole weekend. So Friday would have been a kickoff with the museum. Saturday would have been more of these city events, including what we're doing with the Jubilee, because I have met quite a few people who are also doing Juneteenth events that have just showed love and doing affiliate marketing with myself. So so that was the idea for Saturday. And then Sunday was going to lead us back to the museum for like a closing ceremony and how to continue to activate Black history throughout the year. But so that was the plan initially. So I would just say this, given some ideas that I have, and, you know, through the grace of the committee, we'll see.
Okay. All right. And in reference to you getting your Black History facts, what are you doing? Are you Googling, or is it all books? Is it hearsay? Are you hanging out with the old folks? What do you do when you tap into some new Black history? As one of the things I'm sure most people have tapped you. It's a new Netflix series called High on the Hog, where everybody's like, you gotta watch this, you gotta watch it. I'm like, I'm gonna get to it. I'm not in documentary mode right now.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. Yesterday, History Channel ran the Massacre documentary about what happened in Oklahoma City, the Black business district there. That and that was very common. It wasn't just in Oklahoma City. In many places, massacres like that. What made it unique was that was the first sanctioned bombing in a U.S. territory by the U.S. government, specifically built from racism and hate. What are some of the places you look for your Black history facts?
All of the above.
Okay.
So, to your point, literally from listening to older people in my family and knowing some of their histories, from reading, from researching, from hearsay, and plus just like from being a history minor, a lot of stuff I had learned previously. So just backing up the validity of that and just the constant digging of understanding whose history is truth. And basically what I've learned, there is no truth. You have to make your own. But if more than one source that's credible backs up a certain fact or tidbit, then that's what I roll with.
And as you talk about roll with, you also come with an advantage of being in a classroom and presenting this to young people. Why is it important for young people, and how have you seen young people start responding to more of this Black history as you start presenting it to them?
Well, they loved it because I would live on my soapbox every Black History Month. Like everybody just knew at the school, like it's nothing else is being taught in Miss Ayers' class except for Black history the whole time that she can. And I mean, I would infuse it, of course, throughout the year because I still had to follow the curriculum guide, but still.
They'd be like, algebra ain't got nothing to do with Black history. And they'd be like, brother, do you know that's from the Moorish people, my brother?
Exactly.
Like,
every time I could, I would throw it in there. So, but yeah, I mean, from my experiences in the classroom, what I learned with a lot of my scholars is that it made them more conscientious and woke to a degree. And the reason I say that is because I never really tried to push my ideals on them, but I would always paint a picture. And so when you paint that picture, then they can interpret it for themselves.
Yeah.
So for instance, even when it came to like the whole Black Lives Matter movement, that started, it wasn't just with George Floyd. It started really, I mean, Trayvon Martin, of course, was also a motivating factor for the movement. Right. But the whole thing was like Black deaths had increased with the Obama era.
Exponentially.
Yes.
Exponentially. And I mean, you had the Eric Garner, you had Trayvon Martin, and that slogan
Freddie Gray,
became like Freddie Gray. That slogan became a rallying cry. So like I don't even know how a historian, someone like yourself or Jamon, would characterize what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement and what it means in this moment in time, because it's so many layers to it, because it's a slogan. It is also an organization. That organization has different initiatives in different places. It was the Black Lives Matter conference that was in Cleveland in honor of Freddie Gray. So it's unique. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't even know how historians will look at this, because it's not like the Black Panther Party where it's like you're a member of the Black Panther Party. It's in there. It's a today version of like watching a movement happen.
Very true. But that's the thing that I was getting at. Like, we started there with my scholars, and this was just one of the lessons in regards to painting that picture. But to be honest, we have been doing things similar to Black Lives Matter for a very, very, very long time. So literally, when you think about it, though, like if freedom technically, or should I say freedom written down somewhere or documented in America, was in 1865, you know what I mean? So, or with the passing of the 13th Amendment. So yes, in 1865, from 1865 to 1964, you had civil rights. People literally fighting for civil rights in various stages. Because you had your WB, and then you had your Booker T, and then you had Ida B. Wells fighting in regards to lynching, and then you have MLK and your Malcolm X's and everybody there. So that's like 100-year time span in which people, various leaders, and not just them, those are the ones that I just mentioned, but again, various leaders, including like my girl Fannie Lou, who even hit on intersectionality, which is something that we didn't really talk about. But the whole thing is that various leaders in 100-year dang near time period were fighting for civil rights and Black Lives Matter. Like literally.
It was, and this is, I didn't think we were going to go there. And somebody that's working with me now, Gigi, interning here, is in the room too, because we're going to get into another discussion after this. But it's like how the discussion goes. Like, the genius of Black Lives Matter is the marketing of today and how social media goes, and really in the hashtag, because it became a hashtag, and even unpacking what that hashtag means. And then all lives matter, which it's like both phrases make sense, but nobody brought up the whole all lives. And then furthermore, it's like the mattering, and then you can take that a little further. It is of today. Cause, I remember as a child, marching in front of, where, around where Malice Green was murdered. Rest in peace, Malice Green. I remember being a part of a protest at Lord and Taylor out in Fairlane Mall where a man was murdered, and Jesse Jackson was there. Like, some of these actions have not changed. It's just the way that it's packaged now. And then new young people grabbing on. And then even also as we look at the lens in history, and it's like, oh, that marching don't do nothing, or this don't do nothing for that, or blah, blah, blah. And some of these movements, as we unpack it in history, it'll be great to look back and be one of those older people that's like 60 in the room, and they'll be like, yeah, man, it ain't like back in the day when you was a kid with Black Lives Matter. And I'm gonna be like, all right, well, let me give you some context for that and what that looked like and how that feels. Last summer here with Detroit Will Breathe, which goes back to the whole concept of what happened with Eric Garner, and many of the organizers with that. It was a lot of things happening in Detroit last summer that will be documented depending upon how you look at history. Like, damn, that happened here?
Yeah. I mean, but even still, just with mentioning the stuff that has happened here, we didn't mention Ayanna or Mackenzie Cockrell, or I don't know if you remember
the young lady in Dearborn where that guy walked up.
Exactly.
Man,
she was looking for help too. I can't remember her name right now either. But those are things that we mean, because even with Mackenzie's story, he got killed at Northland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. I mean,
I remember, now that you say that, you said at Northland, I remember the protests there. And these and the actions and what, quote unquote, we should do this, we should do that. I believe as a historian, historians' take sometimes will document what happened and how in different people's takes. As just a person that likes to talk about it more, like a content creator, or they say media journalist. That's what they label me later on. But it's the context matters too. Right. Because it takes a myriad of many approaches to move agendas forward.
Correct.
I don't think it's 100% one way or the other. I don't necessarily think that, where Marcus Garvey was correct, W.B. Du Bois was wrong.
Right.
It's many forms, but there's no absolute per se. It depends on where you at, the functionality, because different people can play different roles in any movement,
and people have, and I, and I'm glad you brought that up, because even with kind of what you were saying beforehand, when people like, everybody just protesting, they ain't gonna do nothing, but it does. And the whole thing is that statement within itself is a generalization, because as you just mentioned, people were doing things in the background that weren't noticed. Stuff has always happened simultaneously in regards to movements,
Yes.
And even with, like, I can't remember the lady's name right now. I recently learned about a woman during the Montgomery Bus Boycott who was just cooking. And her cooking alone, she was selling dinners, to make a bunch of money, and she did stack a lot of money too, but anywho, was cooking dinners just so people could have fuel in their cars so they could be so that they could do the carpooling.
So they could do the carpooling,
Yeah.
which the Montgomery Bus Boycott was very effective.
It was.
And it was leading up, even before it started, it was already a movement. It's funny. It's a song that Nick Speed sampled for me like years back. It was probably made in like the 50s, where it's called Don't Ride That Alabama Bus, Don't Take It No More. And this is before the Montgomery Bus Boycott, because there was already a movement like Damn Alabama. And then when we think of who George Wallace was, that was the governor in Alabama, and a candidate for president, embraced by many of the, at the time, Democratic system, but then became Republicans. But it's all still part of the same structure. Like, that's where history gives you these facts, and you can put this stuff into context where you can say, oh, okay. So it definitely was not a lot of cohorts in support of Martin Luther King from an institutional level. But from the people were like, yeah, we support what the brother's doing. Because I remember when I was in Alabama. And I remember how them people was treating me.
And people don't even think about that, too, because with the 4 little girls and the bombing of that church, they used to call that area Little Baghdad because bombings were normal. And terrorism was normal in that area. So the fact that that church even got bombed in Alabama as well, it was shocking. But again, to be labeled as Little Baghdad because that was a black area that continuously got bombed, like Alabama was already a hot spot that was just about to go into chaos. You know what I mean? So it's just like, again, and I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, but it just, when you think of all the pieces that come together, there is no absolute way to solve an issue as deep as, you know, institutionalized racism, overt racism, covert racism, anything that blocks people from being able to advance in a country that's supposed to be for the free.
And it never was designed for us.
Exactly.
This is still a nation. At the root of everything that happens, this is a nation designed for, I don't even want to say white men, because that just it's designed for white men that own property. That is the design and the makeup of what this nation is built for under the laws. But even the property they own was obviously stolen property, given to them with lending from other European nations. So like, when we think of the foundation of the functionality of what America is for, that's where you kind of got to follow it. It's the rights of who says this property is theirs. So all of the adjustments, as people say, like, should we burn it down? Should we tear it up? Do we change it? These are all intellectual discussions that I think need to continue to happen. But we need to always remember the premise at which the foundation of all of this exists. Hence, I had a back and forth with another guy that does content too about, you know, I always ask that question, you know, if you could rename Woodward after one person, who would it be and why? And he was like, Woodward's already named after a Detroiter. And it's like, well, he's named after a colonist. You know, a colonizer, a murderous colonizer. That was just one of the worst. Tech. Well, I mean, Cass. I mean, when we think of, you know, I mean, damn near if a street's named after you, let's put it like this. You wasn't doing, you know, one of the things, you know, our last president said that was true. It's like, well, you know, if we take down the names of Robert E. Lee, we might as well take down Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. I'm like, he's telling the damn truth. Because they were definitely, you know, when it comes to slave ownership, Thomas Jefferson was one of the most wicked, you know, but these truths are the truths of this nation. So along that line, I do have this question when we think of Juneteenth and people moving forward and building the committee, because you also, along the way, when we think about movements, you've collected a team of very talented Black folks that are working with you, all focused on a goal. How do you manage that? How do you keep their energies and their spirits up? And how do you honor that? Because even in that can become an exchange and move out further for more initiatives.
I'm just a beneficiary of favor, and I'm not even going to hold you up. The most beautiful thing about the committee is that these are people who do what they say they're going to do. And I don't really even know if it's like a method to keep anybody's spirits up or pumped, you know, like I said, I really just think it's favor that these are the people who decided to trust me to lead, who wanted to come behind a common cause of celebrating the culture with this holiday. So, honestly, like, I think kind of tapping into everybody's strengths, that helps. And then letting everybody do what they do, you know? And that's the beautiful thing. I think it was Ella Baker. She was just saying, like, strong people don't need strong leaders. And that's how I feel in this position with being the chair of Juneteenth Jubilee Detroit.
Wow. That's deep. That's deep. So with that, I think we could close out. Tell the people where to go, where can they connect? Because you know us, I know how I would be. I'd just show up on the day of, just and like then be there. Just like yes, that in true cultural fashion.
Right, and that's
like
fine.
You ain't got no ticket. Where are you going, man?
Come on.
So what should people do? How do they connect? And you'll definitely, as you continue this on, we'll probably keep these interviews going because it's always good to unpack this stuff. And Sharea is one of my closest. So,
yeah, it's been some time now, right?
So how do people come? Do they need tickets? How do they support the effort? How do they get there? You know, and because people will call you on your direct line and like, where do I park? And it's like, do you realize that I'm carrying like 10 bags of water and delivering ice to people?
Right. So let me address that first. We do have access to parking lots B and D on Livernois. So that's
I don't even know where that's at. You got to say, give us the landmarks.
Right. Oh, well, the landmarks. Okay. Because one of them is near a liquor store, but.
Okay. That's hey, that's probably a good landmark.
It's across from New Prospect.
Okay. People definitely know New Prospect Church.
So it's across the street on the east side of Livernois. So both parking lots actually are on the east side of Livernois, and they are near the hub, which is at the Best Artist Management Studio. So with that, if you are interested in attending Juneteenth Jubilee, the stroll on the historic Avenue of Fashion, you can register for a free ticket, which will allow you general admission and get you a wristband so you can get your discounts, giveaways, all the stuff that we have for you at June19th.co. That's JUNE19th.co. But if you would like to be VIP, as we say, then you can purchase a ticket at the same site. Again, that's June19th.co. And what that will do, you'll get some extra swag, and you'll also have extended hours at our little lounges.
Okay. Yeah. Do I get somebody that walks out with a champagne bottle and a sparkler?
No. So you'll get like
that's what VIP meant.
Nah, but you'll get special swag. So commemorative swag to commemorate Juneteenth on the Juneteenth Jubilee on the historic Avenue of Fashion. So that include a t-shirt, notebooks, all the stuff. We got a bunch of sponsors too that have given to the swag too. But anywho, cool. VIP members get the swag, extended hours, some food, drink tickets. You know, you get a lot of love for $15.
That's what's up.
Yep. So, and on top of that, for everybody else too, I forgot to mention earlier, we've also been connected with Motown Museum, and they're doing the unveiling of the Marvin Gaye. I don't know if they're going to call it Marvin Gaye Avenue or Street, but the whole idea is that they're going to kick off at 11 o'clock where Marvin Gaye's old house was. And then that's 11.
So people know that is in the district right there by Livernois. If any fans, you know, it was recently a documentary, another thing I got to watch about the What's Going On. The commemorative 50 years since What's Going On was released. Ken Coleman, one of our Detroit historians, is in it, and some other people, but that's right off Outer Drive. People don't know he was working in Motown set on that album for a while, and he was actually working it at Baker's. He was just walking over to Baker's, singing a lot of the songs, and the historic images from that album cover were shot like right in his backyard. Yeah. So
thank you.
You know.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, yes. You know, I'm a nerd on that stuff.
Bring it all together. Yeah. So
it's right there. It's not like you're gonna drive all the way down West Grand Boulevard. You can stay on foot and see that as well.
Correct. So they're gonna do that unveiling, and then that's from 11 to 11:45. Then everybody will be transitioning to the Avenue of Fashion for Juneteenth. So again, to register, go to June19th.co. That's JUNE19th.co to register for a general admission ticket or to pay for a VIP ticket.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've already asked you the classic question, so I don't know what ending question I can ask you now. It's just like off the cuff, but I'm locked. My mind is locked. So I'm going to leave with that, but also within your trivia and other facts, what's next to come for Black history in Sharea?
Well, I don't even know, to be honest. Yeah, basically, I'm gonna try to take on my ideals and bring everything together. So continue to try to be a connector, I'll say, between all the partners and sponsors and all my jobs. Bring it all together, because everything pretty much that motivates me is based around Black history and who I am as a person.
That's what's up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.